So over the past few years, I've been working on I suppose you could call it a very loose series of things I kind of term audio portraits, for want of a better word. A lot of them have involved actual cartography and making, say, interactive map spaces which generate surround sound environments, things like that. Some of them for internal spaces like museums, and some of them have been external sort of performative outdoor things. But in general, they've looked at a kind of relationship of culture and the environment, if you like, and history, and in many cases memory. So the idea is to create a multi-layered, multi-perspective image or portrait of a location and the people who live there. And so this opportunity to visit the Abrolhos and live with a range of different people for a period of, let's say, about 2.5 months, for me was fit very well within that general kind of area of research. And my intention wasn't to go there and make a work, or that, which I think would have been a bit of an imposition. It was more of a kind of mission where I simply wanted to be there and absorb, to observe and find out really about the environment, the ecology, the cray industry, and the kind of it's a very strong kind of and different lifestyle that people who live and work there have.
I've been sort of crayfishing since I left school. My family's been in it out with the Abrolhos for I'm third generation. My grandfather came out, he was a fisherman in England, and he answered a newspaper ad after the war, and where they were giving away boats or something to join this new industry.
I mean, the islands in general are very hard to visit. I mean, as a kind of tourist, you can fly out on to one island where no one is really around.
There's no land-based tourism.
No, none at all. Yeah, there's a few yachts pull in, and you're not allowed to stay overnight on an island without a permit. And I mean, the waters are also a little bit treacherous. I mean, there's a lot of reefs sticking out of the water.
It's not easy navigation.
So you want to be thinking about what you were doing. So I mean, it all conspires to making them fairly isolated. The communities on the island, they're all quite different. Some of them are kind of just a few shacks, and some of them are almost like little villages. But for instance, I was on one island where they had the Australia Day, the two-up thing, and suddenly the island population went from like 25 to nearly 300, with people playing, you know, Anzac Day. Yeah, and it's really interesting to see all the kind of people from different islands coming in and kind of getting into this.
There probably used to be a lot more of that too, and they used to have inter-island sort of football matches and things at the end of the seasons too. I guess it's an industry that's probably seen its heyday kind of 20 years ago or something. Not that because the actual price we get for crayfish now is, we were still getting, you know, when I was a kid in the late 80s and stuff, they were getting that same price. But the expenses were nothing compared to what they are now.
I had a project in Asia, so I spent a few extra weeks going to fish markets and importers.
West Australia.
I did. I found plenty actually. Went to auctions, and I talked to a lot of people who were cooking, running restaurants, and eating them. And apparently, they're always eaten at wedding banquets because they're so expensive in Asia that it's a real speciality. And the people in Taiwan were saying that the ones from Western Australia were actually they could hardly afford them anymore because the mainland Chinese pay more.
Pay heaps for them.
So it's become a very complex kind of. You have to do a lot of calculations to figure out when the best time, relative to the amount of crays around, or other people fishing, or the market price.
What's the market doing?
I've got
a list at home of all the sort of Chinese holidays and celebrations.
Oh, really?
So you can look at those are the times that, you know. tomb sweeping week and this month, and so that you can look at the co-op gives it to us so we can try and understand what the price is doing as well.
Right. Okay.
Probably why I forgot you were coming to the island. Every afternoon I was sitting there with a calculator trying to work out whether I should be going to work the next day.
In terms of collecting sounds on the islands, the major downside is that the Geraldton area, including the Houtman Abrolhos, is probably one of the windiest sites in the whole of Australia, which, whilst you might have a fabulous day for taking a photograph, it's just hideous for sound recording because of just the sheer wind noise. So I really had to look out for opportunities where there was a calm day, a still day. I mean, did get some very, very nice ambient recordings, many bird colonies, and actually walking on this amazing resonant coral, things like that. Quite a few takes on boats, boat noise, but boats tend to be large, super turbo diesel engines. They all sound rather the same. So the other areas I was working in terms of sound would be hydrophone recordings, where I'd head off in a small dinghy and drift across coral. I would be typically getting the sound of snapping shrimp, which sounds a little bit like bacon being fried in hot fat, so a staticky kind of sound. And there are fish which grunt. They kind of go bop, 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 bop. You kind of get those kind of fish sounds. And then if recording in some of the lagoons, and there were actually a few mangrove lagoons on say, Post Office Island, where there were lots of small crustacea, small crabs, and you can physically hear them mechanically walking around, and sometimes a crab would come up and do a little drum piece on the actual hydrophone surface. So I've got somewhere the kind of crabs going like this, which is quite nice, and tiny squeaky kind of crustacean sounds.